The story begins on the day when dungeon gates suddenly appear and monsters pour out. Only people who awaken magical abilities can fight them. The Golden Seekers battle fiercely against the monsters. They notice a terrified victim about to be attacked. Ingolf signals Claudia to help, but she feels overwhelmed by the number of enemies. A huge goblin reaches for the victim, but a man kicks it away and checks on the situation. This man is Masato Kyoichiro, another member of the Golden Seekers. He gathers golden energy in his right palm and wipes out several monsters at once. The others watch in shock. Lei notes that Misato's time magic lets him see the future, making him seem less human. Misato finishes off the remaining monsters and prepares to seal the gate, believing he can protect the people's peace. Suddenly, someone kicks him into a sealing magic circle. He is stunned because he has never foreseen this moment. The members around him reveal their betrayal. They see him as a level 100 monster with time magic, blame him for putting them in danger, and only want safe jobs and money. The blonde member smirks and treats this as the end for Misato. Misato slams his fists against the barrier, shocked that they turn against him after all his efforts to protect the world and his teammates. Trapped inside the gate, he is swarmed by monsters. He tries to use his future vision to escape, but he finds that his future no longer exists. He faces the monsters until he collapses on his knees, covered in blood and bruises. He realizes he cannot change what is coming and feels forced to accept death. Even so, Misato refuses to give up. He decides he will reincarnate, grow stronger, reach the peak, and take revenge. Surrounded by endless monsters, he holds his ground in despair and anger. He releases a final, powerful burst of time magic, hoping for the day he can return and settle his regrets. Misato later awakens in a room and notices a mirror on the wall. When he looks into it, he realizes that his reincarnation has worked. He examines his surroundings and believes it might be a hospital because of the unfamiliar machines around him. He worries about how many years have passed, knowing that if 100 years have gone by, revenge would no longer be possible. He then finds a student ID belonging to the body's original owner. The name on it is Asao Kyosuke. From this, he discovers that 20 years have passed since his death. He also learns that Asao possesses the Void attribute, which makes him burst into laughter. In his previous life, he was feared by his comrades for being the strongest wielder of time magic. Yet as he grew stronger, he eventually reached a limit, and even his clairvoyance could not see the true depth of the Void attribute. He now feels sympathy for the original owner of this body, because the Void attribute is undoubtedly the strongest attribute, one that never existed in his past world. Since it is so rare, no one knows how to train it, which explains why Asao remained stuck at level 1. Misato then makes a firm decision. He will raise Asai's name until it is known across the entire world as the name of the strongest adventurer. With his clairvoyance, he already understands how to train the Void attribute. With this power, he plans to reach absolute strength and make the traitors regret their betrayal and the death they caused. Misato decides that he must level up first if he wants revenge on the traitors. He reflects on the Void attribute and understands that, as its name suggests, it relates to magic that controls nothingness. Its true nature lies in the ability to turn imagination into reality. Everyone can imagine things, but only the Void attribute can convert those images into existence. Since the body he now inhabits is badly injured, he tests this idea. He imagines every damaged cell being restored by magic. The bruises on his arm fade as the healing takes effect. The improvement is slow because this is only a basic application, but he knows that repeating the process will raise his level. As the level increases, his ability to transform imagination into reality will also grow, which will expand the types of magic he can create. With enough progress, he expects to reach a point where anything he imagines can appear exactly as he envisions it. A doctor enters the room and is shocked to see him awake. The doctor explains that Asai was severely injured after a monster attack, and Misato understands this must have happened to the body's original owner. The doctor believes Asai's sudden recovery is a miracle from the saintess of the Pentagram saints. He then leaves to prepare for a full examination. Misato thinks about the Pentagram saints and wonders if they are a clan or a group of adventurers who emerged during the 20 years he was gone. While leveling up remains his priority, he decides he also needs to understand the current world. He turns on the news, which reports on the SSS-class dungeon disaster from 20 years ago. The broadcast claims that he was the culprit. He listens as the report states that Misato predicted the future disaster, but kept silent to take advantage of the chaos and seize control of the world. It continues by saying that the other Golden Seekers stopped him and became known as the Pentagram Saints, celebrated as great heroes who sealed the dungeon after defeating him. They are now described as world-leading figures. Misato becomes enraged. His former comrades not only betrayed him, but also destroyed his reputation and used his sacrifice to gain glory. He vows that he will never forgive them. Even so, he forces himself to stay calm, knowing he must avoid being noticed by anyone connected to them. He turns off the TV and picks up Asai's phone. He discovers that the headmaster of Asai's academy is Iwako Hideki, one of the Pentagram Saints. Misato remembers Iwako as a cautious man who never shows weakness. With the current difference in level, defeating him is impossible, so Misato decides to train first. Iwako becomes his first target. Weeks pass, and Misato fully heals. His rapid recovery surprises the doctor, who believes it must be a blessing, though Misato knows it comes from his own magic. He still appreciates the doctor's care. After leaving the hospital, he feels satisfied with his progress. At level 27, he believes he has completed the basic preparation and decides to visit a dungeon to warm up and continue growing stronger. Misato learns from the doctor that the original owner of the body, Asai, lost his entire family in an accident. He feels sympathy for Asai, but he also understands this means he has no obligations or ties holding him back. He can now move freely toward his goals. Using a map on his phone, he heads to a dungeon gate. He puts on a mask and shows his ID to the security guard. The guard stops him after seeing his level, explaining that level 27 adventurers are not allowed inside because the area is meant for those at level 30 or above who can form parties. Entering alone would be suicide. Asai knows this is true for normal adventurers. He explains that he is a student of the Tokigo Adventurer Training Academy, and as long as he signs a consent form, he is allowed to enter. The guard reluctantly agrees. Some adventurers nearby mock him and call him a greenhorn, urging him to listen to the guard's warning. Asai ignores the mockery. He signs the consent form and heads toward the gate. He appreciates the guard's concern, though he continues forward confidently. The guard still feels uneasy, so he calls out to the group of adventurers to follow Asai just in case. One man tries to refuse, but a violet-haired member of the group encourages the idea, believing it benefits them. They rush after Asai, and the guard feels relieved that someone is watching over him. Inside the dungeon, the violet-haired man reveals their real intention. Their plan is to kill Asai and blame it on the monsters, a tactic they have used before. They see inexperienced adventurers as easy prey that can earn them money. 10 minutes later, they finally catch up to Asai. He stands calmly in front of a group of monsters and destroys them effortlessly with a sweeping flame attack. The men are stunned. They watch a D-rank monster vanish under Asai's power, and they notice a rare item on the ground. Greed overwhelms them. They convince themselves that Asai has not noticed them, so they launch their spells at him all at once. Unknown to them, Asai already sensed their presence. He considers their behavior typical of scum who try to steal from others. He dodges their attacks with ease, moving calmly without fear. The men are shocked, assuming he avoided their spells by chance. The violet-haired man charges at Asai with a flame attack, but Asai counters with a heavy punch that sends him crashing into a wall, coughing blood. With a cold expression, Asai turns toward the remaining two. He sees them as nothing more than pests. For the sake of his revenge, he intends to crush anyone like them who stands in his way and use every obstacle as a stepping stone to grow stronger. Iwako's subordinate, Yoichi Tsudai, enters the dungeon after hearing that a student from the academy went in alone. Inside, he finds 3 novice hunter adventurers lying dead. He looks around and wonders what occurred. Meanwhile, Asai returns to his apartment. He reflects on the D-rank dungeon, where he leveled up and experimented with void magic. He has gained a new spell called Info Obscurity, which allows him to hide his true level and erase dungeon entry records. He considers this ability extremely useful. Knowing that the next day will be his first day at the academy, he checks his phone. He finds messages from people demanding money and insulting him as a no attribute. At the academy the following morning, Asai is approached by his classmate, Asahi Karin. She expresses concern for his condition, and he realizes that the original Asai actually had people who cared about him. Soon after, 3 bullies approach. Their leader demands money, and Asai recognizes them as the same people who sent the messages. Asahi steps in to defend him, reminding them that he just left the hospital, but Asai gently steps forward, assuring himself that he can handle the situation. The bullies laugh at him and mock him for pretending to be tough. They state that he is a worthless nobody who cannot use magic properly. Asai counters confidently, believing it is they who need to understand their place. He remembers his oath to make Asai's name famous across the world as the strongest and prepares to stand his ground. The bully leader becomes angry and casts a flame spell. Asahi panics because using magic outside of dungeons violates school rules. The bully ignores this and launches a large fireball at Asai. Asai calmly blocks it with a fireball of his own, shocking the bullies with the identical attribute. Asai looks down on him with cold confidence, making it clear that this display is insignificant. Enraged, the leader orders his companions to attack. They obey, casting multiple spells. Asai responds by matching each attack with the same magic attribute, leaving them stunned. They cannot comprehend how he can use so many types of magic. Asai asks if they have had enough and declares that it is now his turn. He releases a fierce aura of flames that terrifies the bullies. They try to run, but he catches their leader easily. He reflects that the original Asai must have begged for mercy in the past. Without waiting for excuses, he lifts the leader by the collar and notes that bullies always say the same things. Their words will not stop him. He strikes the leader hard in the face with an empowered punch, sending him flying before he hits the ground. Asahi watches in shock. The remaining bullies rush to pick up their leader and flee. Asai stands firm and makes a clear decision. From this moment on, no one will ever look down on the real Asai again. The two of them, his current self and the original owner, will walk the path toward becoming the strongest adventurer together. The bullies mutter apologies as they rush away. Asai and Asahi head into the school building. Many students stare at Asai strangely, and he wonders if he has drawn too much attention. Someone then taps him on the shoulder and asks if he is Asai and whether he has time. Asai turns and sees that the person looks like an upperclassman. He plans to avoid the conversation by saying class is about to start, but the senior introduces himself as Yoichi Tsudai, the leader of the clan known as Biting the Cat. Asahi recognizes the name and notes that it is the clan created by Iwako. Yoichi repeats his request for a moment of Asai's time, and Asai eventually agrees. Yoichi immediately brings up the incident in the D-rank dungeon from the previous night. He asks if Asai is the one who defeated the adventurers found dead there. Asai pretends not to understand and wonders how Yoichi obtained that information, since the details should have been kept secret. Yoichi explains that he went to investigate after hearing that a student entered the dungeon alone. He found the infamous novice hunting criminals dead, and also saw Asai using multiple magic attributes earlier that morning. Asai smirks inwardly, realizing Yoichi still has no clue about the true nature of his magic. Yoichi presses him again for an answer. Asai claims he was suddenly attacked this morning and does not clearly remember anything else. He then shows his student ID, pointing out that he is only level 1. Yoichi is shocked as he checks the ID and sees the void attribute. Feeling annoyed for wasting his own time, he excuses himself and warns Asai not to act suspiciously again. Asai watches him leave and considers the situation. He realizes Yoichi can be useful because Yoichi has direct access to Iwako and can approach him without raising suspicion. Asai begins to wonder how he can turn Yoichi into a pawn and decides that this moment may be perfect for testing his magic. Later, Yoichi stands in Iwako's office and reports what he discovered in the D-rank dungeon. Iwako criticizes him for mishandling the matter and reminds him to be careful when choosing who to rely on. Yoichi apologizes and promises to calm the situation quickly. Iwako warns that if the public learns Yoichi was involved in novice hunting, he will face backlash. He grips Yoichi's chin and reminds him that he can be discarded easily if anything goes wrong. Yoichi accepts the warning, but regrets not collecting more hush money from the now-dead novice hunters. Iwako then points out a gap in Yoichi's report. According to the information, the student who entered the dungeon would need to be at least a third year, yet no third-year student went in that night. Therefore, it is more reasonable to assume the novice hunters were killed by a monster while hunting, and Yoichi is lying to cover it up rather than believing a lone student took them down. Unless something extremely unusual occurred, that conclusion makes more sense. Yoichi remembers his conversation with Asai and asks if a unique attribute could be involved. Iwako admits that it is possible. Yoichi then requests permission to handle the issue himself, promising to resolve the situation quickly. Yoichi enters the dungeon with a group of students as they fight monsters. An ape monster appears and startles them, but Yoichi quickly defeats it and keeps the group in formation. The students admire his skill, saying it's expected from someone chosen by Iwako. Yoichi finishes clearing the monsters in the area and leaves the rest to them before walking deeper into the dungeon alone. He then brings out a tracking chain he has enchanted to reveal Asai's location. The chain shows that Asai is far from the others, which Yoichi sees as perfect. He believes no one will suspect foul play if Asai dies in a dungeon, since such accidents are common. He feels overwhelmed by recent troubles after leaving the hospital, starting with the novice hunter incident and the report from the bullies. They had told him Asai used the exact same magic they once used and created a massive flame they had never seen before. After getting what he wanted from them, Yoichi ordered his subordinates to re-educate the bullies, saying he has no use for weaklings who lose to someone he considers incompetent. The bullies, frightened, insisted that Asai no longer seemed human. As Yoichi recalls all this, he walks through the dungeon following the tracking chain. He thinks the fear in the bullies' faces was abnormal, which is why he made Asai attend the special class under biting the cat. He convinces himself that Asai must have used a magic item to deal with the novice hunters and that there must be some trick behind it. When he finds a monster corpse burned in a single strike, he wonders if Asai did it. The burn mark suggests the bullies told the truth. Still, Yoichi is not impressed, thinking even Iwako, despite being a Pentagram dropout, could do the same. He keeps reminding himself that he must follow Iwako's orders for now, even though he dreams of surpassing him someday and replacing him at Pentagram to rule the world. To reach that future, Yoichi believes he must erase any evidence linking himself to the novice hunters. He sees Asai as a future threat who cannot be allowed to cause more problems, so he decides Asai must suffer an accident. But when Yoichi finally reaches the corner where the chain points, he freezes in shock. Asai is sitting calmly on top of a massive pile of monster corpses, waiting for him. Yoichi can't understand how Asai sensed his presence, because he believed it was completely concealed. Asai casually repeats Yoichi's thoughts word for word, causing Yoichi to panic as he wonders if his mind has been read. Asai sits on his throne of corpses and coldly states that Yoichi is far weaker than expected, just like Iwako. He also shows knowledge of Yoichi's secret actions with the novice hunters. As Yoichi reels in confusion, Asai states that Yoichi enjoys tormenting others, but has never understood what it feels like to be the one hunted. Now Asai intends to make him experience that feeling, using his magic to force Yoichi to dance like a puppet. Yoichi calls Asai extremely dangerous and summons a flaming sword. He swings at Asai, who jumps back and stays calm. Asai questions if this is truly Yoichi's strength, then counterattacks with a fireball. Yoichi easily deflects it and acts confident, but Asai immediately switches to lightning magic. Yoichi blocks the strike with his sword, only for wooden spikes to burst from the ground beneath him. He destroys them with a grim look, as he finally understands that Asai can use multiple magical attributes. Asai then appears behind him and attacks with his sword. Yoichi barely blocks the blow and snaps in frustration, complaining that Asai keeps interfering with his plans. Yoichi declares that he intends to surpass Iwako someday, replace him, and rise to the position of Pentagram Saint. Asai, uninterested, asks why Yoichi's target is specifically Iwako when there are others. Yoichi explains that Iwako is the weakest, a dropout, so taking his place would give him the easiest path to the rank that grants the right to rule the world. Asai admits he briefly worried Yoichi might have already reached Iwako, but after hearing Yoichi's shallow ambition, he realizes there is nothing to worry about. Yoichi becomes enraged and charges at him. He insists that wanting overwhelming power is not wrong, power strong enough to trample anyone without consequence. As the two clash, Yoichi insists that once he becomes a Pentagram Saint, he will be free to do anything he wants, even gaining leverage over the Saintess and claiming her for himself. Asai dismisses Yoichi's delusions as worthless and says their fight is ending now. He swings with force and shatters Yoichi's flaming sword to pieces. Yoichi stares in shock. Asai explains that Yoichi's pointless talking has given him enough time to finish preparing his magic. He casts absolute hypnosis, dropping Yoichi unconscious instantly. Asai knows that the spell requires weakening the target's spirit before activation, but once it succeeds, the victim becomes easy to control. He commands Yoichi to stand, and Yoichi rises immediately, confirming that the spell worked. Asai tells him to focus on completing the mission for now, and that further instructions will come later. Yoichi responds drowsily until Asai orders him to speak in his usual tone. Yoichi's cold attitude returns at once as he prepares to resume leading the group. A short while later, Asahi finds Asai in the dungeon and asks where he has been, worrying about him. Asai apologizes and says he was simply discussing something with Yoichi. When she asks what it was, Asai explains that they talked about how to make his dreams come true, and he received very useful advice. She happily hopes his dream becomes reality soon. Far ahead, Yoichi gathers the students and announces that the special class is about to end, telling Asai and Asahi to join the group quickly. Asai is satisfied with how things turned out. By joining this class, he has finally gained a pawn, one that Iwako will never suspect. Iwako later asks Yoichi if there has been progress with the novice hunter incident. Yoichi claims that, just as expected, a student with a unique attribute is involved. He identifies the student as Asai, a first year with the void attribute. Yoichi also claims he has already captured Asai and is interrogating him at their usual location. He reports that Asai supposedly admitted to using multi-attribute magic to defeat the novice hunters. When Iwako asks what he means, Yoichi says the details are still unclear, but asks for more time to uncover everything. With a smug expression, he adds that it has been a while since Iwako handled a case directly. Iwako answers that it has also been a long time since he personally tortured anyone. He says he intends to repay Yoichi generously for all the trouble Asai has caused them, and he announces that he will head to the location soon. Yoichi accepts this. Afterward, Iwako takes a call from Lei Roxy, who teases him about ignoring her attempts to provoke him, even though they share government subsidies as partners. She is the CEO of Lei Company. Iwako replies that she hasn't changed, but he insists he is too busy to talk. She presses him about what he is busy with, and he tells her he is investigating a student with the void attribute. Lei laughs at the idea that someone with such an attribute could matter, but Iwako says that because it is still a unique attribute, anything is possible. Lei then realizes he is hinting at a connection to Misato's time attribute magic. At the mention of Misato's name, Iwako becomes furious and snaps at her. Lei simply remarks that he is as short-tempered as always and reminds him how Misato's awakening had completely changed the power balance among adventurers. She says she will contact him later. When the call ends, Iwako slams his phone on the table, disgusted that he heard Misato's name again after so long, and becomes eager to release all his pent-up anger on Asai. Iwako then heads to the location where Yoichi claims Asai is being held. On the way, he imagines different ways he might torture Asai, planning to unload the anger he could never unleash on Misato. When he opens the warehouse door, he finds the place completely empty. Before he can react, Yoichi appears behind him and launches a surprise attack. Iwako blocks it immediately and remarks that Yoichi has become careless, too blinded by praise. He summons a golden chain that binds Yoichi on the spot and declares that Yoichi was never capable of defeating him. He says Yoichi has destroyed himself with his own foolish desires. But suddenly, another voice calls Iwako an idiot. He turns, demanding to know who is there. Asai steps out, revealing himself, and remarks that Iwako is still as greedy and foolish as ever. Iwako becomes enraged and shouts that he is the academy's principal and can expel Asai. But Asai only smirks coldly and tells Iwako to calm down. He says he has finally reached this moment and wants the two of them to take their time and talk. Iwako becomes furious that Asai dared to make a fool of him. He decides to show the full difference in their strength and activates advanced Earth attribute magic, summoning a giant Earth fist. Confident that no student could possibly avoid it, he sends the fist crashing toward Asai, causing a massive explosion. Iwako laughs loudly, believing he has finally defeated Asai and claiming that this is what happens when a mere student dares to defy him. After the dust settles and the warehouse lies in ruins, he begins to wonder if he overdid it and starts thinking about finding a new location to torture people. As he approaches the debris with a handkerchief to clean his face, he is shocked to see Asai standing unharmed, calm and unscathed, despite the full force of his advanced magic. Iwako is stunned, realizing that he has never seen a student like Asai before. He demands Asai reveal his name, but Asai teases him, implying that he already knows it. Iwako, still in disbelief, struggles to place him. Asai reminds him of the past, and Iwako's mind races back to Misato, leaving him dumbfounded. He insists that Asai must be mistaken, pointing out that Misato was supposedly dead, as the news and history claimed. He gathers a wave of green magic to attack, intending to end the confrontation immediately. Asai approaches calmly, criticizing Iwako for being swayed by the flattering words of those around him, which caused him to betray Misato. Iwako attacks again, determined to silence him, but Asai effortlessly deflects the strike using time magic. Iwako's shock deepens as he recognizes the magic. It is the same time-attributed magic that Misato used years ago. He cannot believe what he is seeing, insisting that Misato was sealed in the dungeon. As Asai moves closer, he explains that he was trapped and thrown into despair, revealing that he is, in fact, Misato reincarnated. Iwako finally realizes the truth, and Asai, with an eerie smile, expresses his satisfaction that Iwako has finally remembered him. Iwako rises to his feet, insisting that if Asai is really Misato, it means Misato died and returned to this world. He summons a spell, claiming ghosts should stay silent, but Asai easily dodges the attack. Iwako follows up with a massive earthen fist, yet Asai evades it as well. Iwako realizes he must gain the upper hand. Though he was a non-combatant during his time as a Golden Seeker and ridiculed by other Pentagram saints, he refuses to be seen as weak. He activates a dual magic technique combining wind and earth, an advanced spell he spent 20 years perfecting, and launches it at Asai, causing a huge explosion. Panting from exertion, he believes this is his strongest magic. As the smoke clears, he sees Asai has encountered, and he jubilantly assumes he has finally defeated Misato. Iwako tells himself that the Misato he knew 20 years ago is gone, that Asai's time attribute power is only a thing of the past, and that now he is the strongest among the Pentagram saints. Suddenly, Iwako hears Asai's voice and realizes he is completely unharmed. Shocked, he cannot believe Asai survived such powerful attacks. Asai calmly remarks that Iwako's magic is impressive for a hero of this era and tells him he can release all his anger freely now. Iwako finally realizes that Asai is on an entirely different level. Not willing to back down, Iwako summons a giant earthen palm to crush Asai, but Asai uses water magic to dissolve the attack instantly. When Iwako follows up with multiple wind slashes, Asai conjures a massive whirlwind, deflecting the attacks and sending Iwako flying into a tree. As Asai prepares to strike with flame magic, Iwako kowtows, begging for forgiveness and apologizing for the events from 20 years ago. He hopes to appeal to Misato's pity, but Asai coldly snaps that this is exactly how they trapped him back then. Iwako insists they were once friends, but Asai tells him he has no right to say that, not after turning him into a demon of revenge. Asai launches a flurry of punches, finishing with a powerful strike that sends Iwako flying through the trees and crashing against one. He tells Iwako that he should be grateful for still being alive, as he has questions to ask, but sees that Iwako is unconscious and cannot hear him. Iwako slowly regains consciousness, terrified at the sight of Asai standing before him. He trembles, fearing for his life, while Asai calmly informs him that he will not kill him, but demands answers. Asai takes out Iwako's phone and examines the call history, noticing that Lei contacted him earlier that day. He pressures Iwako to reveal the details of the conversation, learning that Lei plans to arrive in Japan in 3 days. Asai makes his decision about what to do next, and returns the phone, instructing Iwako to behave normally toward Lei and not reveal his true identity. Asai hints at a deadly magical consequence if Iwako disobeys, showing him a simulated flame explosion, which terrifies Iwako and ensures his compliance. As Asai walks away, it becomes clear that he did not actually place any lethal magic on Iwako. Instead, he relied on a psychological bluff to instill fear, confident that this will keep Iwako obedient while maintaining his sense of self. He deliberately avoids using absolute hypnosis because he wants Iwako to suffer in despair while remaining fully aware. 3 days later, Lei travels to Japan on a plane with her subordinate. During the flight, masked hijackers attempt to seize control, restraining the flight attendants and demanding compliance from the passengers. Lei immediately neutralizes the threat, swiftly incapacitating the hijackers. The passengers are shocked, quickly realizing that Lei is one of the powerful Pentagram saints. After the flight lands safely, the airline manager expresses gratitude to Lei for resolving the dangerous situation. Lei calmly remarks that the incident prevented the airline's reputation from being tarnished and explains that many groups now carry weapons crafted from dungeon materials that evade modern detectors. She notes the need to equip staff with protective gear, similar to what she and the manager carry. After leaving the airport, Lei secretly releases the hijackers she had planted, using the staged event for publicity. Fans eagerly respond to her actions, and she waves at them with a confident smile, enjoying the attention. Later, Lei travels by car to Iwako's office to address the business that brought her to Japan. She asks about progress regarding the student with the void attribute. But Iwako, wary of the magical consequences if he slips, describes the student as a worthless failure and insists it was a false alarm. Lei then moves to the matter of the new drug they are developing, suggesting that the academy system could be used to select their next human test subject. Elsewhere, Asai listens to the conversation through an earpiece. He coldly observes the situation, realizing that Lei will be the next person to experience despair at his hands. Asai sits in his apartment, listening to the news in the background. The news reports highlight Lei's recent arrival in Japan and praise her for swiftly handling the attempted plane hijacking. Asai's eyes narrow as he listens, his mind turning over the memories from 20 years ago, recalling that Lei was one of the people who betrayed him back then. He remembers how she was already known for producing unique weapons using materials harvested from dungeons, and how she had built a fortune selling them. Judging from his earlier conversation with Iwako, it becomes clear to him that Lei is using the academy as a front to carry out her own secretive and possibly nefarious activities. On the surface, she appears to be a celebrated hero, admired and praised by the public, but behind the scenes, she manipulates others and pursues her own interests at their expense. Asai stands, finishing his preparations to head to the academy, and his mind carefully plans out his approach. He recalls that when he first arrived at the school, the security was already extremely tight, making any direct approach to Lei impossible without careful strategy. As he walks toward the academy, Asahi Karin spots him and calls out, approaching with a cheerful smile. She notices that Asai is reading an article about Lei on his phone, and begins to enthusiastically praise Lei's bravery, recounting how she had taken down the hijackers the previous day. Asahi adds that Lei's great snake of Changshan clan is also highly respected, noting that the clan has a large number of powerful members who have made a name for themselves in various circles. Asai's mind races as he wonders whether the men in black suits he had seen during the hijacking incident were affiliated with that clan. Asahi goes on to explain that many of the academy students plan to join the military, asking what Asai's own plans are. Hearing her words sparks a thought in Asai's mind. He realizes that if he can find a way to leverage Lei's clan, he might be able to get close to her and use it to further his own plans. Grateful for the insight Asahi has inadvertently provided, he thanks her silently and steels himself, his mind already forming a careful strategy. Without giving away his thoughts, he heads off toward the academy, focused and determined to put his plan into motion. Iwako is seen on a call with Asai, who calmly requests a favor, speaking in his usual controlled tone. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit laboratory, a group of scientists and lab professionals busily scribble notes and compile reports while monitoring a man kneeling on the floor, restrained and writhing in obvious pain. His groans echo softly across the sterile room as Lei walks in, her presence commanding attention. She strides toward the restrained man, exuding an air of authority, and coldly asks how he feels. The man pleads desperately for her to stop injecting him with the experimental medicine, but she responds without hesitation, using her heel to shove him harder against the floor. She declares that she does not concern herself with the opinions of lab rats, and insists that if the man is compatible with the medicine, it will enhance his abilities. She then instructs the laboratory staff to continue with the procedure. The scientists follow her orders, injecting the man with the medicine. His body convulses violently, spasms rippling through him as he struggles to form words. Lei observes the results with a keen eye, noting that this time the injection caused a loss of language function. She remarks coldly that without at least some basic skill in magic, the medicine is ineffective and that she will need additional data to perfect the process. Her subordinate approaches and informs her that they will soon require more test subjects. Lei's expression remains sharp and calculating as she plans how to acquire them. She decides that on the surface, they will stage it as a recruitment campaign for the great snake of Changshan clan, masking the true purpose of the experiments. As she steps into the elevator, she makes a call to Iwako, requesting students skilled in magic and asking whether he can select suitable candidates from the academy. Iwako suggests holding a selection process at the academy to identify the students with the greatest potential, an idea Lei acknowledges with a brief smile, noting that he occasionally comes up with useful suggestions. After the call ends, Iwako reflects that he has successfully done exactly as Asai instructed, following through on the plan without raising suspicion. Later, Lei's subordinate is seen at the academy, making an official announcement that the Great Snake of Changshan clan will be holding a special selection exam to recruit new members. Excitement spreads among the students, many of whom see this as a rare opportunity to join the prestigious and powerful clan. Asai observes the announcement from a distance, a calculating smirk crossing his face. He realizes that this selection exam provides him with the perfect opportunity to get close to Lei. The students gather on the academy pitch, buzzing with excitement and curiosity as Lei's subordinate steps forward to explain the rules of the selection exam. The atmosphere is tense, filled with anticipation as everyone listens closely. Asai stands among them, his mind calculating every step. He reasons that in order to join the great snake of Changshan and get closer to Lei, he must successfully pass this exam. He moves carefully through the crowd, keeping a low profile when approaching Iwako, mindful that this time, unlike before, he cannot remain hidden. To accomplish his plan, he must display enough power to catch the attention of Lei's right-hand man, Yang Xinyu, as well as the examiners themselves. Asahi approaches him, her expression determined. She plans to take the exam as well, motivated by personal reasons that drive her ambition. Despite feeling slightly out of place among the more skilled students, she is committed to giving her best and encourages Asai to work alongside her so they can face the challenge together. Asai observes her resolve and silently supports her, knowing that her participation could be both helpful and risky in the unfolding plan. The exam begins with the first stage, designed to measure each student's magical power. A sophisticated measuring device stands at the center, glowing faintly. The students step forward one by one, placing their palms on the device as it visualizes and records the strength of their magic. The examiners watch closely, taking meticulous notes of each student's performance. When it is Asai's turn, he presents his ID card, revealing a level of 33 and the rare void attribute. The examiners and fellow students show little outward expectation, assuming that he will perform adequately but without distinction. Asai places his hand on the device, and immediately a brilliant ray of light erupts from it, blinding the nearby students and catching everyone off guard. The intensity of the display shocks the examiners, who hurriedly record the results as an S grade, acknowledging the extraordinary power that the device visualizes. During the magic skill test, Asai demonstrates his mastery with precision and control. He conjures a lump of earth and proceeds to generate magic from each of the elemental attributes, water, fire, lightning, and wind, simultaneously. The crowd watches in stunned silence, unable to comprehend the skill and versatility he displays. Asahi, observing his performance, feels inspired and determined to do her best as well. Asai notices her effort and gives her silent encouragement, signaling that she should push herself to her limits. Later, Asahi demonstrates her own magic, reviving a patch of dead flowers with a soft glow of light. While the other students show little reaction, Asai is momentarily stunned. He realizes that she is using the rare light attribute, an uncommon and difficult form of magic. He understands that the examiners may find it challenging to evaluate her skill accurately, yet he feels a twinge of sympathy for her. Still, he reasons that drawing her into this process will be beneficial for their larger objectives, even if it places her at risk. Meanwhile, Yang Xinyu observes the proceedings with keen interest. He notes Asahi's unique magical ability and immediately considers her a potential test subject for future experiments. The next phase of the selection exam begins, consisting of one-on-one duels between the students and members of the Great Snake of Changshan. The students stand frozen with fear, fully aware of the skill and power of their opponents. Panic spreads among them as everyone realizes that even attempting to win against the experienced clan members is nearly impossible. Yang Xinyu steps forward to reassure the students, explaining that the results will not be judged solely on victory or defeat. Instead, what matters is how the students fight, how they demonstrate control, creativity, and strategy in combat. He emphasizes that no first-year student could realistically defeat a member of the clan, so the true focus is on the quality of their performance. When it is Asai's turn, he faces a clan member known for his strength and reputation. The clan member recalls the commotion during the previous tests and comments on how the student must have performed well, assuming that his prior displays might give him confidence. He intends to demonstrate that those previous performances mean nothing in actual combat. Asai steps forward calmly, his mind focused on learning and adapting from the duel, treating it as both a challenge and an opportunity to gauge the skill of the experienced fighter. The clan member begins the duel with overwhelming force, conjuring a massive earth boulder and splitting it into smaller chunks to send hurtling toward Asai. With ease and precision, Asai manipulates the pieces using wind magic, redirecting the boulders back at the clan member. The attack leaves the opponent momentarily stunned. Asai vanishes from the clan member's line of sight, only to reappear behind him, holding an ice spear at his neck. With a calm demeanor, Asai demonstrates that his mastery of multiple magical attributes allows him to exploit openings and counterattacks with precise timing. The duel ends swiftly, with Asai emerging as the victor. Young Shinyu, observing from the sidelines, is left stunned and speechless, questioning the identity and origin of this extraordinary student. Meanwhile, Lei sits in her office, receiving a call from young Shinyu. He reports the performance of the new student, describing the overwhelming results and noting the void attribute, a rarity among adventurers. Lei listens carefully, her mind calculating the possibilities. The report confirms her suspicions that this could be the same student Iwako had previously been investigating. A sinister smile spreads across her face as she considers the potential opportunities. She sees the student as a fascinating new test subject, someone she can exploit for her own purposes. Young Shinyu stands before the gathered students to announce the results of the selection exam, calling out the names of those who passed. Asai's name is the first to be called, confirming that everything is unfolding exactly according to his plan. This positions him perfectly to get closer to Lei while maintaining the appearance of an ordinary participant. When Asahi's name is called next, he is taken aback, surprised that she has also been selected. He hadn't expected that simply having a unique attribute would be enough for her to pass. As he observes her bright, excited smile, he quickly realizes that Lei is likely using the academy students as part of a larger, hidden scheme. Asai resolves in his mind that he will protect Asahi at all costs, ensuring that no one lays a finger on her while he pursues his own objectives, carefully balancing his personal mission with safeguarding her. A few days after the selection exam, the students who passed arrive at the Japanese branch of Lei's company. Young Shinyu greets them, explaining that a suitability check will be conducted before they are officially onboarded into the Great Snake of Changshan. He mentions that Lei herself will arrive to meet them after the check and proceeds to lead them through the facility. Asai would prefer to go directly to Lei, but he realizes that he cannot leave Asahi alone at this moment, especially with her excitement over being selected. As they walk through the facility, Asai asks Asahi about her motivation for joining the clan. She explains that her mother is hospitalized and that the medical expenses are overwhelming, which deepens Asai's determination to protect her even more. Young Shinyu leads the students to the basement, revealing the laboratory where the suitability check will take place. He orders his men to close off the facility completely, and the students immediately sense that there will be no chance to escape once the process begins. One student hesitantly confronts young Shinyu, only to be silenced as he coldly demands obedience, stating that the suitability check will begin. He explains that the check involves a new drug, secretly developed using rare materials from the dungeons, designed to dramatically enhance both physical abilities and magical power. Asai, cautious and observant, considers the implications and inquires about potential side effects of the drug. Young Shinyu dismisses theoretical concerns, opting instead to show a recorded example of a test subject who did not survive the procedure. The students are horrified, watching the recording of the incompatible individual succumbing to the drug's effects. Anger and fear spread through the group, and two of the students impulsively attempt to attack, but Asai immediately positions himself in front of Asahi to ensure her safety. He quickly neutralizes the threat while instructing her to stay close to him. Young Shinyu, realizing that Asai is actively obstructing his plans, becomes furious. He directs his men to restrain Asai, but in an instant, Asai disables all of them with a single, precise strike, leaving Young Shinyu stunned and unprepared for such power from a student. Despite the shock, Young Shinyu attempts to forcefully capture Asahi as a hostage, believing it will pressure Asai into submission. However, Asai intercepts him effortlessly, closing the distance with inhuman speed and strength. Young Shinyu is left completely shocked, unable to reconcile the fact that a student could wield such overwhelming power, while Asai calmly prepares to confront him directly. Asai positions Asahi safely behind him, and she feels a mix of relief and awe, struggling to comprehend the extent of his power. Though she had noticed his growth before, she had never imagined that he had reached this level of skill and strength. Asai focuses on young Shinyu, his expression cold and unwavering, and demands an explanation for why the students of the academy are being used as test subjects. Young Shinyu responds arrogantly, boasting that serving as experimental subjects under Lei is an honor, claiming that those who survive the process and demonstrate compatibility with her drug will receive her blessings and gain extraordinary strength. He treats the students as expendable tools, seeing their suffering as a necessary step in Lei's plan to elevate her own power. Hearing this, Asai's anger erupts. Memories of why Asahi had joined Lei's clan flash before his eyes, and his fury manifests as a palpable, intense aura that radiates outward, pushing the air and sending a clear message of overwhelming power. Young Shinyu, sensing this oppressive presence, is momentarily stunned, struggling to comprehend that such strength could come from a mere student. Asai's aura communicates unspoken wrath and determination, making it clear that he will not tolerate the exploitation of innocent students. Young Shinyu, attempting to regain control, tries to manipulate the situation by offering Asai a deal to serve under Lei if he hands over Asahi, even suggesting a high-ranking position within the clan. Asai's resolve is absolute, and he rejects the idea, declaring in his demeanor that he cannot forgive such cruelty and betrayal. Enraged but unwilling to concede, young Shinyu activates his body-strengthening magic, a technique that amplifies his physical abilities to superhuman levels. He relies on it in combination with his martial arts training, confident that it gives him an unbeatable edge. With a roar of aggression, he launches a powerful punch aimed directly at Asai. The force of the strike is immense, cracking the ground where his fist lands, sending vibrations through the floor, and shocking Asai, who fears the destructive power she is witnessing. Asai observes the effect of the body-enhancing magic and recognizes its strength. He concentrates deeply, focusing his mind on transforming his imagination into reality, preparing to counter Yang's assault with precision and ingenuity. Meanwhile, Yang Shinyu, misinterpreting Asai's concentration as hesitation or fear, charges forward recklessly, certain that his next attack will land. Asai activates his void magic, a unique and potent attribute, and channels it to strengthen his body beyond the limits of ordinary enhancement. When Yang Shinyu strikes with his body-strengthened punch, Asai's own augmented strength, fueled by his void magic, allows him to block the blow effortlessly. The sheer power of Asai's counter-enhancement eclipses Yang's previous magic, making it clear that his abilities are on an entirely different level. Drawing on his imagination and mastery of multi-attribute magic, Asai propels a devastating punch at Yang, sending him hurtling through the air with terrifying force. Yang crashes into the wall with a shattering impact, the bricks cracking under the immense pressure, leaving him dazed and questioning the true identity and strength of Asai as he lies sprawled on the ground. Asahi, witnessing the overwhelming display of power, feels a mixture of relief and awe and silently thanks Asai for protecting her. Asai, meanwhile, directs the other students who had been caught in the chaos, instructing them to follow him as he clears a path for their escape. Though they are curious about his intentions, Asai demonstrates his immense power once again, blasting open a wall with a single, controlled punch to carve a safe route. His focus is unwavering, as he has a personal mission that he must attend to immediately. Elsewhere, Lei receives urgent reports detailing the defeat of Yang Shinyu and the retreat of the students, her expression shifting from confidence to alarm as she processes the news. In the next moment, Asai arrives at her office, his presence calm, but suffused with lethal intent. He positions himself with deliberate precision, his aura emanating power and authority, making it immediately clear that he has come with a singular purpose. His objective is clear. He has returned to exact retribution for the betrayals and injustices that occurred 20 years ago, confronting Lei directly and unflinchingly, signaling that the reckoning she had long avoided has finally arrived. Lei wonders what Asai means by the debt he mentions, but Asai already senses her confusion and decides to remind her about the events of 20 years ago in the SSS-rank dungeon involving her and her colleagues who were known as the Pentagram Saints at the time. Lei struggles to believe what Asai is saying, questioning how a student could possibly know such things. Despite her skepticism, Asai explains that he now sees how those Pentagram Saints have become influential leaders in every major field, celebrated as heroes for eradicating evil. Lei remains unconvinced, though she notices a sudden change in Asai's aura. Asai then reveals that Lei used her comrades as sacrifices to gain rewards and build her own legacy, and that she continues to trample on the will of those who once stood beside her. Lei reacts with laughter at the audacity of Asai's claims, finding them absurd, but Asai insists that it is not mere conspiracy, claiming that he knows the truth of her past actions. He recounts how Lei pushed her comrades into the gate long ago, which leaves Lei shocked and bewildered, unable to understand how a seemingly ordinary student could possess such knowledge. Asai then confronts Lei with the question of whether she truly understands who he is, eventually revealing his identity as Masato Kyoichiro. Lei refuses to believe it at first, but Asai proves the truth by recalling the terrifying power she once recognized and labeled monstrous, the same power he now wields. The revelation leaves Lei both horrified and frightened at the mention of the name Kyoichiro. Asai continues, demonstrating that he knows the secret actions of Lei's company and the potential damage to her reputation if these secrets were exposed. Lei reaches her breaking point and becomes furious, attempting to threaten Asai, but her intimidation fails to affect him. Determined to confront Lei for her past wrongs, both to him and to the girl who gave everything for her, Asai maintains his resolve. Refusing to be intimidated, Lei quickly decides on a course of action, grabbing a weapon from the table beside her. The moment she seizes it, an immense aura radiates throughout the office, so powerful that she assumes it should intimidate Asai, especially considering the weapon was developed by her company. Lei decides to demonstrate the sharpness of her weapon by testing it on Asai, attempting to strike him directly. As she swings, Asai instantly dodges the attack, but Lei assumes he can only evade and cannot counterattack. Soon, however, she realizes that something is wrong. Every attempt she makes to hit him fails completely. It becomes clear that Asai is deliberately showing her how sloppy her movements have become, a result of not having exercised her deadly skills for a long time. Asai makes it clear that she is no longer as formidable as she once was, certainly no match for Iwako, which shakes Lei deeply and leaves her feeling incompetent. The humiliation stings, fueling her frustration as she tries to strike again. At first, it seems like she lands a hit, and for a brief moment, she feels satisfaction. But shock quickly replaces her excitement when she realizes that the attack has no effect. Asai remains completely unharmed. It dawns on her that this is likely the result of his void magic. Determined to try another approach, she infuses her weapon with a fiery aura and attacks once more, only to find herself thrown to the ground instead. Refusing to give up, Lei rises again and launches another strike. This time, Asai stops the weapon effortlessly with only 2 fingers, leaving her stunned and increasingly desperate. Realizing conventional attacks will not work, she decides to use her final option, injecting the atmosphere with her power. She begins the process quickly, taking advantage of the moment before Asai can react, but he immediately tries to counter it. Despite his efforts, Lei's demonic aura spreads, filling the entire area. Asai had never anticipated that she would escalate the battle to such an extreme level. Before Asai can react, Lei transforms into a monstrous form, ensuring that she would be extremely difficult to defeat. Asai briefly considers whether she might be relying on some enhancement drug to gain this power, but he doubts it will be so easy for her to win. Lei has invested immense time and resources into creating the serum she injected, gathering rare materials from the deepest dungeons, and spending years refining the formula. She has been chasing a way to reach true power for 20 years, and now she feels she has finally obtained a strength that surpasses everything she has known, a strength she believes rivals Asai himself. Asai realizes it is time to bring her back to reality and stop her overconfidence. He channels his fire aura into both hands, preparing for the confrontation. Lei sees this as the perfect opportunity to prove her own power, and she braces herself for battle. She launches a fierce attack, but Asai effortlessly dodges, as he has done from the start. Undeterred, Lei closes in, intensifying her aura to demonstrate that she can send Asai back to the afterlife once more. Believing that the close distance will give her the advantage, Lei steps forward, confident that victory is within reach. But one of her legs becomes trapped in a hidden snare that Asai had planted during her previous attack. She struggles violently to free herself, only to learn that the trap was set with careful foresight. Asai observes her struggle, noting the ingenuity behind her use of body enhancement magic, but also pointing out that despite all her efforts, the serum merely stirred a gust of power, rather than creating true strength. Lei feels insulted that Asai dares to belittle her years of research, but Asai calmly reminds her that her achievements were built on trampling over others and calling it progress. Anger and frustration surge within her as she attempts to kill him to silence his taunts, but every attack is effortlessly stopped. Realization dawns on her that her powers are no longer effective, and that Asai is far stronger than she remembers from the past. Asai steps away, leaving Lei trapped in her monstrous state. Before opening the door to leave, he ensures she understands that the powers she relied on were never genuine in the first place. Outside, he walks along the main road and hears his name called. Turning, he sees Asahi nearby. At the same time, news of the attack on the Lei company spreads rapidly. Reporters rush to the scene, confirming the events, and the truth of Lei's crimes begins to emerge. Asahi overhears the reporters and questions whether Asai is responsible, but he gives no direct answer. Observing the chaos from afar, Asai feels satisfaction. The truth about Lei's actions is finally exposed. The test subjects are safe, and Lei has ultimately lost everything she had worked for. Although Asahi does not fully understand the situation, she grasps one undeniable truth. If Asahi had not intervened in the affairs of the Lei Company, she would not be standing in front of the company at that precise moment. This realization fills her with a sense of gratitude toward Asahi, and in that instant, Asahi recalls how meaningful it has always been for him to help others, how assisting those in need has consistently brought him a sense of purpose and satisfaction throughout his life. Later that same day, a television broadcast interrupts the normal flow of news, spreading shocking reports about illegal human experiments conducted in a hidden underground laboratory operated by Lei, once a member of the Pentagram Saints. Asahi watches attentively as the broadcaster explains that the public has only just learned of Lei's crimes, following an attack on her by an unknown assailant. The report mentions that Lei was exhibiting signs of memory disturbance at the time she was found, adding an air of mystery and urgency to the story. Asahi's thoughts turn to Lei's former comrades in the Pentagram Saints, wondering how they will respond to the revelations. Just as he ponders this, the broadcast shifts, announcing that Nathaniel, one of the Pentagram Saints, has released a public statement. On screen, Nathaniel expresses, on behalf of the other members, a sense of shame and regret for failing to notice the depths of Lei's malevolent actions earlier. But Asahi immediately senses the deception in Nathaniel's words. He recognizes the statement as a calculated lie, a false display of remorse intended to protect their reputations rather than acknowledge the truth. The hypocrisy angers him deeply. He never anticipated that the Pentagram Saints would once again feign ignorance and innocence, just as they did years ago. The sight of Nathaniel on television tempts Asahi to contact the broadcaster directly to expose the truth behind the facade, but he restrains himself for now. Memories of the past flash through Asahi's mind, reminding him how the Pentagram Saints have always lied without hesitation or remorse. He recalls that he and Asahi were merely pawns in their schemes, treated as stepping stones rather than legitimate test subjects. From everything he knows, Nathaniel must have led the effort to have him exiled all those years ago, a manipulative move executed with cold precision. Asahi also knows how calculated and cautious Nathaniel is, and he realizes that no one currently knows Nathaniel's whereabouts, which adds another layer of frustration to the situation. Meanwhile, the Pentagram Saints themselves begin to gather for a meeting to discuss the recent events involving Lei. Members from Claudia to Ingolf to Nathaniel and Iwako prepare for an online council, visibly agitated and troubled by what has occurred. Their sense of outrage over Lei's condition compels them to convene formally, holding a meeting to deliberate on the matter. Claudia struggles to believe that the person who exposed Lei's illegal experiments could be the same assailant responsible for her recent attack. Ingolf grows increasingly angry, unable to understand how Lei could have been so reckless as to bring disgrace upon the Pentagram Saints. Nathaniel, attempting to calm the situation, assures them that they do not need to worry or take responsibility, insisting that the experiments were conducted by Lei alone and that the others should not be blamed. Iwako, listening to Nathaniel's words, anticipates this exact response. He knows Nathaniel will always try to shift the blame onto the victim rather than confront the truth, though he is uncertain how Ingolf and Claudia truly feel about the issue. Still, Iwako recognizes that he has no choice but to follow Nathaniel's lead, knowing the strict hierarchy and control Nathaniel maintains within the group. Claudia expresses her curiosity and frustration, eager to know who could have done such a thing to Lei. At that moment, Iwako reveals that he received a sealed letter from the assailant, which immediately shocks everyone present. Nathaniel's curiosity is piqued, and he instructs Iwako to read the contents aloud. Iwako obliges, reciting the letter written by Asahi. In it, Asahi declares that he has returned to the present world from inside the gate and warns that he will deal with every one of them in due course, leaving them to wait. As the words hang in the air, a chilling presence is felt, the unmistakable aura of Misato Kyoichiro. Claudia wonders if the letter could be a trick, someone merely using Kyoichiro's name, but Nathaniel immediately dismisses the idea. He reasons that the sender must have been inside the gate before, making it all but certain that the message came from Kyoichiro himself. Claudia begins to panic, unable to comprehend how such a powerful figure could have returned. Ingolf, trying to maintain control, reassures everyone that there is no need to worry. He reminds them that they have faced Kyoichiro before and successfully subdued him, so there is no reason to fear. Nathaniel outwardly agrees with Ingolf's assessment, though inwardly, he begins to consider strategies and wonders how Kyoichiro would react to any move they attempt. Unbeknownst to them, Iwako has only been following Asai's instructions, deliberately misleading the others during the meeting. Afterward, he reports to Asai, confirming that he carried out the plan exactly as instructed. Through this, Asai deduces that Nathaniel does not intend to act immediately. However, he knows that once he officially confirms his return, he will be compelled to take action against those whose locations he already knows, striking swiftly without hesitation. Asai instructs Iwako that their next step must involve securing his transfer to Ingolf's academy. This shocks Iwako, who feels the need to explain that Ingolf is fundamentally different from either him or Lei. He assures Asai that Ingolf's reputation is clean, free of shady dealings or rumors, and that nothing malicious should be expected. Despite this, Asai is undeterred, understanding that regardless of Ingolf's integrity, he will at least have the opportunity to confront him directly. After clarifying this, Asai ends the call. Asai reflects for a moment, realizing that even if he learns no negative rumors about Ingolf, it does not erase the betrayal he suffered 20 years ago. Determined to act, he prepares for his journey to Germany. Once on the plane, he contemplates his plan and confirms the connection between Germany's academy and Ingolf, realizing that he can use the academy as a means to get closer to his target. Upon arriving in Germany, Asai immediately sets his course toward the academy. On the way, he notices two men persistently harassing a female student, their conversation incomprehensible due to their different languages. Curious and concerned, Asai uses his void magic to translate their words and quickly understands the situation. The men are demanding that the girl follow them somewhere, and when she refuses, they threaten to punish her. Without hesitation, Asai intervenes, cautioning the men to leave her alone. His warning is met with anger, and the men react aggressively. One of them immediately moves to attack Asai, attempting to teach him a lesson for interfering in their affairs. Asai instinctively defends himself, aware that the magical auras of their attacks are already impacting the girl. In a swift and precise counter, he neutralizes the man's magic in a single strike, sending the attacker sprawling to the ground. The girl watches in shock and awe, completely taken aback by Asai's overwhelming power and the speed with which he protects her. Immediately, the two men, filled with fear, retreat and run away, apologizing as they go. The girl turns to Asai, thanking him for saving her life, but Asai reassures her not to worry. Both of them notice the crowd that has gathered and is staring at them, drawing unwanted attention. Recognizing the need to move, Asai suggests they leave the area and find a safer place to continue. They walk away from the crowd, taking a quieter route. The girl, still feeling a strong sense of gratitude, thanks Asai once again for his intervention, but he politely tells her not to bother. Asai experiences a strange feeling of familiarity with the girl, as if he has seen her somewhere before. At the same time, the girl notices his uniform and asks if he is a Japanese student. He confirms that he is, explaining that he arrived in Germany that very day for a short exchange program and that he is on his way to the training academy when he noticed her situation. Hearing this, the girl offers to escort Asai to the academy as a gesture of thanks. Asai appreciates her kindness and accepts the offer. As they walk together toward the academy, he asks if she is merely traveling, to which she confirms that she is. However, Asai notes that it is rare for a girl to travel alone, which makes him curious about her age. He questions whether it is safe for her to be alone, especially after the earlier incident with the two men. The girl assures him that she is capable of defending herself, claiming she knows spells that can be used in dangerous situations. Asai wonders why she had still been caught earlier, despite her abilities. The girl explains that the academy Asai is heading to is known for its merit-based system. She describes how the school implements class rankings, a strict hierarchy, and a point system that rewards achievements, making it a place where skill and effort are measured rigorously. From her explanation, Asai deduces that Germany's academy takes meritocracy far more seriously than schools in Japan. He connects this to what Iwako told him about Ingolf, who runs regular training sessions for upper-class students, and realizes that if he wants to get closer to Ingolf, he will need to make a strong impression at this merit-based academy. He finds this challenge appealing. Not long after, they approach the academy, and the girl points out the location, identifying it as Lansig Academy. As the building comes into view, Asai decides he can continue from there on his own. They exchange thanks, and the girl introduces herself as Shirato Sayuki. Asai responds with his full name. Upon hearing his name, Shirato reacts with surprise. When Asai asks if she is all right, she explains that his name reminds her of someone she once knew. She then bids him good luck at the academy and departs. As Shirato leaves, Asai notes that her name also sounds familiar, though he cannot place it. He continues toward the academy, and just before reaching it, a man approaches him. The man knows that a Japanese student has recently been transferred there and invites Asai to follow him. Asai questions the man's identity, and the man explains that he merely wants to welcome him to the academy, ensuring that Asai does not get into trouble. Asai feels satisfied that he has immediately attracted attention upon arrival. Remembering what Shirato told him about the academy, he suspects the man is trying to size him up for a duel. Asai agrees, dropping his bag, and the man activates his magic in preparation. Without warning, Asai nullifies the man's magic aura, leaving him shocked. Turning around, the man sees Asai's handiwork and realizes the gap in their abilities. Asai compliments the man on the quantity of magic he used, but points out that it is far too weak. He advises the man that if he intends to use earth magic effectively, he must develop his aura to a much stronger level, demonstrating the standard he expects. Fear becomes evident on the man's face as he wonders who Asai truly is. Later, Shirato is seen making a call to Claudia, reporting that she has successfully made contact with Asai. She explains that she will remain in Germany for the time being. Observing him closely, it becomes clear that Shirato's presence was part of a deliberate plan orchestrated by Lady Claudia to monitor Asai. Asai enters Lansing Academy and makes his way to the porter's desk, where he presents his ID card and completes all the necessary paperwork to officially register. He notices that he can now finally begin his excursions into the local dungeons. Unbeknownst to anyone else, before submitting his ID card, he had already cast an auto-translation spell on it, slightly altering its appearance from the original Japanese version. As he examines the card he is given, he sees that he has been assigned 0 points. Immediately, he recalls the point system Shirato mentioned earlier and deduces that the card likely tracks dungeon performance and accomplishments. Since he has no classes scheduled for the day, Asai seizes the opportunity to explore the dungeons in Germany. Unaware that someone is observing him, specifically the man who attempted to challenge him earlier, Asai focuses entirely on his plan to accumulate points and eventually reach the special class, which will bring him closer to Ingolf. He decides to begin earning points in an upper-tier dungeon, confident in his abilities. As soon as he steps into the dungeon, Asai is surprised to encounter a monster almost immediately, much faster than he is used to back in Japan. Despite the speed of the encounter, he quickly identifies the creature's weak spot, relying on his extensive experience from his previous life as Misato Kyoichiro. As the monster charges toward him, he activates his fire magic, preparing a powerful attack. Recognizing that the creature is undead, he knows that fire and blunt force are particularly effective against it. When the monster reaches him, Asai strikes with his hand, engulfed in fire magic, releasing an aura far stronger than the monster's own energy. In an instant, the undead creature is cut in two. 2 more undead monsters remain, stunned by the sudden death of their companion. Undeterred, Asai challenges them to come at him, demonstrating his confidence and readiness for combat. Surprisingly, the 2 remaining undead do not attack. Instead, they gesture for Asai to follow them, leading him deeper into the dungeon toward their leader. As he approaches, the oppressive presence of the boss fills the chamber, creating an atmosphere heavy with danger. Determined to test his abilities, Asai launches an attack with his fire magic, only to find that the boss counters using powerful water magic. The fireball he sends toward the boss is extinguished effortlessly, and Asai immediately recognizes the truth. This is indeed a formidable boss-level monster, not to be underestimated. Asai initially halts his attack, observing the boss closely, but the creature refuses to relent. The boss continues activating its ore magic relentlessly, hurling molten projectiles toward him. Reacting quickly, Asai dodges each attack, narrowly avoiding the deadly streams of ore that melt anything they touch. He realizes that wielding ore magic at this level would normally require an advanced spell, but he senses an opportunity to turn it to his advantage. Concentrating, he prepares for another strike while keeping his focus sharp, despite the boss directing more ore attacks at him. Using his wind magic, Asai boosts his speed, propelling himself across the battlefield with unmatched agility. As he ascends toward the boss, he cleverly intercepts some of the molten ore projectiles, catching and redirecting them back at their origin. The force of the attacks, now redirected, strikes the boss directly, and to his surprise, the molten ore melts the creature's defenses, demonstrating both his ingenuity and raw power. Victorious, Asai returns to the dungeon floor and dismisses his magic. Reflecting on the battle, he realizes that the ore magic, being a high-level spell, is too complex to replicate perfectly with his current skills. He understands that further refining and increasing the level of his void magic will be necessary to fully control such high-tier spells in the future. During this time, he senses that someone has been observing him. He calls out, demanding that the observer reveal themselves. The figure steps forward, revealing himself to be the same man who attempted to challenge Asai earlier. The man claims he was merely watching Asai's fight, but Asai quickly questions whether the man came to the dungeon intending to duel him once more. As the man approaches, Asai feels a subtle, hidden energy emanating from him, his hand tucked in his pocket, and briefly fears the possibility of some enhancement or weapon being used, similar to the experiments of Lei. To Asai's surprise, the man kneels before him, removing a small cup from his hand. He explains that in Japanese culture, passing the cup around is a sign of respect, and humbly asks Asai to accept him as his disciple. He confesses that he was deeply impressed by Asai's performance against the monsters and genuinely wishes to learn magic from him. Observing the man's sincerity and lack of threat, Asai pats him on the shoulder, acknowledging that he is harmless. Before Asai can proceed further, another monster appears, vastly more powerful than the previous one. Its massive size fills nearly half of the dungeon space, and its ominous aura radiates a terrifying presence. Asai quickly realizes that this is the true boss, the real challenge of the dungeon. The young man, witnessing the sheer magnitude of the creature, collapses in fear, trembling uncontrollably on the ground, paralyzed by the overwhelming aura. The guy finally gathers the courage to look at the boss and remembers seeing something like it in the manuals. According to the manual, the monster is called the Skull Dragon, the same one that wiped out an entire village years ago. The manual notes that Ingolf barely managed to defeat it. Asai wonders why the Skull Dragon is here, but he moves closer, ready to fight. The guy is shocked and tries to warn him that no matter how strong he is, he cannot defeat the monster. Asai makes it clear that even Ingolf did not truly take down the Skull Dragon. He knows the Pentagram Saints would never admit that Misato Kyoichiro was the real slayer, and that the story was likely twisted over time. Either way, Asai prepares to kill the Skull Dragon again. As he approaches, he feels it is even stronger than the one he fought 20 years ago. Despite that, he is ready and activates his fire magic. The Skull Dragon counters with its own magic, but Asai breaks its spell. The guy is impressed, but Asai signals that this is not the end. The Skull Dragon begins regenerating. Asai explains that its stamina is unusually high for an undead monster. If it is attacked weakly, it will just stitch itself back together. The guy wonders how Asai knows this, while Asai assesses the monster, realizing it is tougher than he thought. The monster launches another attack, and Asai blocks it. The guy notices that Asai has not fully sharpened the image in his mind, a key part of void magic through imagination. The clearer the image, the greater the power. Eventually, Asai decides on a plan. He approaches the monster, opens his mouth wide, and casts a magic spell into and around it. The guy fears he is risking himself, but the spell alone overcomes the Skull Dragon. Afterward, they leave. The guy praises Asai for his skill, then examines his ID card, which catches Asai's attention. He asks about dungeon points and class rank. The guy explains that every 10,000 points increases a class. Asai calculates that he will need 30,000 points to reach the special class. The guy explains that dungeon points are flat rate, so defeating the Skull Dragon does not give any extra points. Asai realizes he only earned 500 points from his last dungeon run, meaning he would have to complete the dungeon 600 times to qualify for the special class. He understands that reaching the special class will take a long time. Noticing Asai's goal, the guy mentions a shortcut to earn points faster. He explains that a Sublime Heaven Festival will be held in a month, where students compete in head-to-head challenges, and the winner earns 20,000 points. Asai sees the huge reward and realizes that taking first place would close the gap with Ingolf in one move. He immediately decides that he will aim for the top spot in the upcoming festival. A month later, the day of the Sublime Heaven Festival arrives, and the academy buzzes with energy as students gather in the courtyard. The festival begins with a formal announcement, setting the stage for the upcoming competition. Throughout this time, Asai's mind remains focused on one goal, reaching the top so he can get closer to Ingolf, the one who betrayed him years ago. The contestants assemble outside, and the mission is revealed. They must claim a gemstone placed at the very top of a towering structure. The rules make it clear that the method of obtaining the gemstone does not matter. Students may either fight through obstacles or climb directly, using any strategy they choose. Asai's disciple, Mateo, stands by him with confidence, assuring Asai that together they will top the charts once the mission ends. Hearing that the festival only allows two-person teams, Asai hesitates briefly, unsure how to proceed. Still, he feels reassured by Mateo's presence, knowing that they will face the challenge together. Mateo beams with excitement, eager to prove themselves alongside his mentor. Asai then notices Shirato in the crowd and is momentarily surprised by her presence. She has come only to watch the festival, likely hoping to catch a glimpse of him. Mateo, seeing her, wonders if she might be Asai's girlfriend, but Asai quickly dismisses the thought, keeping his focus on the upcoming competition. Their attention is soon drawn to a commotion among the other students, and they turn to see Ingolf arriving. Seeing him immediately ignites Asai's anger, a familiar fire of resentment and determination, though there is nothing he can do at the moment. The academy principal steps forward to welcome Ingolf, expressing appreciation for his attendance. Ingolf responds coldly, making it clear that he is only interested in the festival itself, intent on identifying the most powerful student among all the competitors. Once the introductions are complete, all students are directed into the tower to begin the mission. Inside, Asai scans his surroundings, mentally preparing for the challenge ahead. Mateo nudges him, reminding him that they need to move quickly if they want to stay ahead. Just as they advance, a sudden appearance of hostile creatures blocks the path. Asai anticipated this, recognizing the creatures from how they are addressed in the mission briefing, and immediately braces himself for the fight to come. Immediately, Asai unleashes his fire magic on the approaching creatures, the flames erupting in a burst of heat and light. The creatures are incinerated almost instantly, leaving nothing but smoke and ash in their wake. Mateo, recognizing the urgency of the mission, rushes to keep pace with Asai, understanding that speed is crucial if they are to stay ahead of the competition. Outside the tower, students and spectators witness the display, and Ingolf's eyes widen in surprise. He cannot believe the power and precision of Asai's attack, and he is even more shocked to realize that the student demonstrating such skill is Japanese. Shirato, however, remains calm and unsurprised, having long known that Asai is no ordinary person. Inside the tower, the challenge continues relentlessly. Mateo steps up and casts his own magic, striking down several creatures with controlled precision. He feels a surge of pride at his own capability, but Asai keeps them focused, reminding him silently that they cannot afford to slow down. Together, they push deeper into the tower, clearing monsters and obstacles without pause, their movements fluid and coordinated. As they approach a steep flight of steps, Asai notices a sudden aura ahead, an indication of another team waiting to block their path. He quickly signals Mateo to halt, intercepting the attacks aimed at them with swift and precise magic. Once the aura dissipates, they realize it comes from a rival team intent on stopping them. The other students had sabotaged the staircase, breaking it to prevent Asai from progressing further. Mateo panics momentarily, uncertain how they will overcome the obstacle. Asai, calm and confident, reassures him with a simple solution: they will fly over it. Mateo's eyes widen in disbelief, but before he can question it further, Asai grabs his hand and launches them both over the broken steps, soaring effortlessly to the next level. Meanwhile, the rival team, stationed near the final chamber, believes their plan has succeeded. They feel a premature sense of triumph, thinking they have thwarted any chance of victory for Asai. They never imagined that a Japanese student would be capable of such a feat. Unbeknownst to them, Asai has been steadily closing the distance, silently following behind. Before they can react, Asai appears directly behind them. The sight leaves them stunned, unable to comprehend how he scaled the obstacles with such ease. Determined not to be defeated, they immediately launch a barrage of magical attacks. Yet Asai does not flinch. Without moving an inch, he effortlessly deflects and neutralizes every spell, sending the rival students into shock. Even Mateo cannot hide his amazement at his mentor's skill. Pressing forward, Asai reaches the final door and opens it to reveal the gemstone they were tasked to claim. Mateo's excitement surges, but Asai quickly calms him, reminding him that the challenge is far from over. No sooner have they entered the chamber than a group of armored knights materializes, their imposing presence filling the room with tension. One of the judges outside notices the unexpected development and frowns, puzzled by the sudden appearance of the knights, as it was not part of the official mission. Ingolf, however, remains unfazed, having anticipated this moment. He watches intently, curious to see how Asai will handle this new layer of difficulty. Asai, ever composed, braces himself for whatever comes next. The principal's face darkens with anger when he discovers that the chaos in the tower is the result of Ingolf's interference. He feels that such interference is unnecessary and unfair to the students. Yet Ingolf remains calm and unapologetic. Ingolf explains that trials like this are meant to occur in missions of this nature. In his view, any student aspiring to become a great mage must be prepared to overcome such obstacles. Dealing with powerful adversaries and unexpected challenges is simply the bare minimum of what true mages must endure. But beneath his composed exterior, Ingolf cannot help but wonder whether the students will be able to navigate the trials, overcome the armored knights, and ultimately claim the gemstone. A flicker of curiosity crosses his mind as he anticipates how the young challengers will perform under such pressure. Meanwhile, inside the tower, Mateo's nerves fray as he glances at the imposing line of armored knights standing between them and the gemstone. Fear grips him, and for a moment he questions whether they can survive this encounter. Asai senses Mateo's hesitation and reassures him, emphasizing that if they do not defeat these knights, reaching the gemstone is impossible. Mateo's eyes widen at the sheer number and intimidating presence of the knights. Yet Asai's determination is unwavering. He reminds Mateo that no matter how strong the opposition, they must push forward. He has a goal he cannot afford to abandon. Mateo, inspired by Asai's resolve and unwilling to let his mentor face this alone, steels himself and decides to support him fully, setting aside his fear. The tension in the room spikes when one of the knights launches the first attack, moving with deadly precision and overwhelming force. Asai reacts instantly, activating his body enhancement magic. The sudden surge of power is breathtaking. His aura flares outward, shimmering with raw energy that leaves Mateo momentarily frozen and even forces him to duck for cover. The students observing from outside gasp in disbelief, unable to comprehend how Asai channels such immense strength with only his bare hands. Without hesitation, Asai strikes back, his enhanced physical attacks colliding with the knights with devastating impact. Each movement is precise and lethal, cutting down a significant number of them in a single sweep. The sheer magnitude of the aura he releases is so intense that it rattles the room, shaking the remaining knights to their core. Mateo watches, a mixture of awe and terror washing over him, realizing just how powerful Asai truly is. Even Ingolf, standing outside the chaos, cannot hide his surprise. He watches closely as Asai fights, expecting perhaps a falter or retreat, yet nothing of the sort occurs. Asai does not hesitate, does not hold back, and it becomes painfully clear to Ingolf that this young Japanese student intends to face all the knights head-on. As the battle rages on, Mateo's fear intensifies. He notices the knights multiplying rapidly, their numbers swelling in what seems like an unending wave. He cannot understand why the school would impose such a brutal trial at this time, and anxiety gnaws at him, making him question whether they can survive the ordeal. Shirato, observing from the sidelines, also feels a twinge of doubt. The increasing number of knights makes her wonder if Asai can possibly emerge victorious once again. Yet, despite her skepticism, she remains captivated, unwilling to look away. She wants to see if Asai can break through the seemingly insurmountable challenge, even if she fears the answer. Inside the tower, the knights now number 30, a daunting force even for the strongest students. Asai surveys them calmly. Compared to the battles he faced 20 years ago, this is nothing, merely a fraction of the challenges he has already endured. He focuses, blocking and deflecting each attack aimed at him, moving with speed and precision that leaves no opening for error. Knowing that taking them down individually would consume too much time, Asai plans a single, overwhelming strike. He realizes he does not have the luxury to create a completely new spell from scratch, so he draws on a powerful spell he has seen before. Though it belongs to one of his former enemies, he has no choice. He must use it. Channeling his void magic, he begins the activation. Outside the tower, Ingolf finally rises, astonished and uneasy. He recognizes the spell as belonging to someone else and is incredulous that a student could wield it with such proficiency. Before he can process it further, Asai completes the spell, fusing wind and earth into a single devastating magic. The effect is instantaneous and catastrophic for the knights. The fused elements swirl violently, tearing through the room with unstoppable force. In moments, all 30 knights are obliterated, leaving nothing but a wake of chaos and dust. The spell is so powerful that its effects ripple outside the tower, and even the students watching from afar shield their eyes, unable to bear the intensity of the display. With the battlefield cleared, Asai steps forward and takes the gemstone, signaling the successful completion of the mission. Shirato, still watching, is utterly shocked. The use of fusion magic is something she never expected from him, making it nearly impossible for her to gauge the true depth of Asai's magical capability. Ingolf, equally astonished, struggles to believe what he has witnessed. He knows firsthand that even Iwako, 20 years ago, required decades to master a similar fusion spell. Yet here Asai stands, having accomplished it effortlessly. Though surprised, Ingolf acknowledges the student's skill. He resolves that if Asai can enter the special class, he will train him thoroughly, recognizing the young mage's extraordinary potential. After the Sublime Heaven Festival, the school holds another formal program. Asai receives a promotion to the Express class, a recognition of his incredible performance over the past month, particularly his feats during the festival. Mateo beams with pride, thrilled to see his mentor's talent officially acknowledged. The atmosphere is festive, and the students eagerly anticipate the upcoming armband ceremony. During the announcement, the principal reveals that a special guest has been invited to present the awards. Asai wonders silently who the guest could be, curiosity flickering in his mind. Moments later, Ingolf steps onto the stage. The surprise is mutual. Ingolf himself seems to question why he has come all the way to the academy, yet he assumes a formal role, presenting Asai with his armband. As he hands it over, Ingolf leans slightly and whispers that Asai should come to his estate that night. The other students notice the private conversation, and Mateo immediately begins speculating about what Ingolf might be saying. Asai, however, does not know Ingolf's intentions. Despite his uncertainty, he resolves to go to the estate that evening. Upon his arrival, the messenger at the gate greets him warmly, noting that they have been expecting him, and ushers him inside. Asai's mind races. He wonders whether Ingolf has discovered his true identity as Masato Kyoichiro. If that is the case, he realizes the situation could become dangerous, as he is still preparing for the confrontation he knows he must face one day. Nevertheless, he steels himself, accepting that he may have no choice but to confront Ingolf directly when the time comes. Upon entering the estate, Asai finds himself in a spacious dining room. The table is laid with a lavish meal, and Ingolf gestures for him to sit and join him. Asai hesitates, puzzled by the hospitality, and silently questions Ingolf's intentions. The meal proceeds in relative silence, punctuated by the occasional glance between mentor and student. Only after the plates are cleared does Ingolf begin their discussion. Ingolf first praises Asai for his performance in the Sublime Heaven Festival, acknowledging his skill and composure under pressure. Then, shifting his tone, he requests that Asai reveal whatever secrets he might be hiding. Asai stiffens slightly, unsure if Ingolf has discovered his true identity. He remains cautious, holding back his true thoughts, carefully observing Ingolf's expressions and mannerisms. Slowly, he realizes that Ingolf's inquiry is not about his identity at all. Rather, Ingolf is curious about how Asai mastered fusion magic so effortlessly, a feat that even Iwako, his comrade 20 years ago, took decades to perfect. Thinking quickly, Asai fabricates a story, claiming that Iwako provided him with special training back in Japan, teaching him the foundations of fusion magic. Ingolf listens intently, convinced by the explanation, knowing that Iwako possesses the ability to train someone in such advanced techniques. He warns Asai not to misuse the power, cautioning him against the fate of Masato Kyoichiro, whom he describes as having betrayed his comrades and nearly causing catastrophic destruction. Unaware that Asai is in fact Masato Kyoichiro, Ingolf recounts in detail how his predecessor nearly went too far and how others were forced to intervene. As Ingolf spins the tale, Asai feels a surge of anger burning within him. Every false accusation, every fabricated detail against himself, ignites a desire to strike Ingolf where he sits. Yet he restrains himself, forcing his composure to hold, carefully masking his fury beneath a calm exterior. He thanks Ingolf for his advice, choosing to interpret it as a lesson on the importance of strength in combating evil. With quiet conviction, he tells Ingolf that he intends to do whatever it takes to surpass everyone else in power. Ingolf freezes slightly at Asai's words, clearly taken aback by the determination radiating from the young student before him. He acknowledges the spirit he sees in Asai, stating that he wishes to reward it, though Asai does not yet understand what Ingolf means by that promise. Ingolf leans back slightly, his gaze steady, as he explains that in the next training cycle, he intends to serve as Asai's sparring partner. He emphasizes that this is contingent on Asai's agreement, leaving the choice entirely in his hands. Asai listens carefully, a mix of surprise and anticipation stirring within him. Without hesitation, he accepts the offer, expressing that it would be an honor to face Ingolf in training. With the agreement made, Ingolf rises, formally concluding their meeting. He departs, leaving Asai to process the significance of what just occurred. As Asai makes his way back to the academy, a quiet but intense satisfaction fills him. The request from Ingolf excites him more than he expected. He had intended to ask for such an opportunity himself at some point in the future, but now that it has been offered voluntarily, the timing feels perfect. This moment presents him with the chance to finally confront and settle the grudge he has carried for the past 20 years. It is the special class periodic training day, and the academy buzzes with excitement. Students chatter eagerly, unable to hide their anticipation at the thought of Ingolf stepping onto the training field. Many of them feel a pang of envy, wishing they were the one chosen to train under the legendary hero. Amid the crowd, Asai feels a thrill of anticipation, knowing that today he will finally have the chance to settle a score that has haunted him for years. He remembers Ingolf's promise to have a mock battle with him during the training, and a quiet determination ignites within him. While many expect Ingolf's training sessions to be casual demonstrations or brief lessons, Asai has different plans. He intends to overwhelm Ingolf completely, to make him regret the betrayal that changed the course of his life decades ago. He knows Ingolf likely assumes this will be a routine exercise, but Asai is prepared to show the full depth of his strength. As the training begins, Ingolf steps forward with an air of authority, scanning the assembled students. He announces that he has chosen his opponent, calling Asai out to the center. Mateo, watching from the sidelines, is astonished. Seeing his master face Ingolf in combat validates every decision he has made, every risk he has taken to be here. Across the stands, Mateo notices Shirato observing the proceedings as well. Her presence briefly distracts him, and he recalls her familiar face, though he quickly dismisses the thought, attributing her attendance to the close bond she shares with Asai. Asai's pulse quickens. The moment has arrived. He knows that Ingolf will not anticipate what he is about to do. Although Ingolf exists on a level far above Iwako or Lei, Asai is determined to make him bend before his power, to demonstrate just how far he has come. The fight begins. Ingolf strikes first, launching a surge of wind magic aimed at Asai. The force is swift and precise, carrying an aura so intense that even Shirato flinches at the sheer power. Asai reacts immediately, blocking the attack with calculated precision. The students gasp, feeling the intensity radiating from the duel. Despite his focus, Asai studies the nature of Ingolf's magic carefully, unsure whether it is enhanced by body magic or some other augmentation. Determined to counter, he activates his earth magic, readying a reinforced defense. Ingolf continues his assault, using body enhancement magic to increase the strength and speed of his strikes. Asai deflects the attack with reinforced stone, a move that visibly surprises Ingolf, who did not expect his opponent to have such a reliable counter. Recognizing Asai's skill, Ingolf decides to escalate, announcing that he is now using his true body enhancement magic. With immense force, he strikes, and the aura surrounding him intensifies dramatically, far stronger than anything he has shown so far. The impact pushes Asai backward, forcing him to expend considerable effort to maintain his stance. Mateo, observing the exchange, is shocked. He cannot comprehend how a single strike could push his master back. Despite the pressure, Ingolf notes Asai's quick instincts and keen perception. He commends him for recognizing the nature of the attack, even as he reminds him that the battle is far from over. Asai studies Ingolf carefully, observing the increasing intensity of the aura. He realizes that Ingolf is no longer holding back. This is the full measure of his strength. Seizing the moment, Asai prepares his counterattack. Before Ingolf can anticipate it, Asai unleashes a torrent of fusion magic, combining elements with precision and power. The energy surges outward, fierce and overwhelming. Shirato, watching closely, immediately recognizes the signature of the same fusion magic he had wielded during the Sublime Heaven Festival. Asai keeps releasing more of his fusion magic, reinforced with stone, and the power is so strong that it feels like the whole place might collapse. Even so, Asai is amazed that Ingolf can still withstand his attacks. It shows how much stronger Ingolf has become since 20 years ago. Before Asai can react further, Ingolf begins releasing more magic spells. A bright light suddenly surrounds him, forcing Asai to raise his head to see him clearly. Through the light, Ingolf calls out, telling Asai to come at him. They must keep the fight going. Asai does not know about the magic spell Ingolf uses at that time, so he wonders how Ingolf is able to discover it 20 years ago. But he still does not give up, as he uses his earth magic to attack back, knowing that the blast covers a wide area, so he feels like Ingolf will not be able to dodge it. And just as he thinks, Ingolf cannot stand on the ground, as it is crumbling beneath him, so he has to fly up in the atmosphere, whereby Asai has already planned that once his stance breaks, he will slam him with a fuse spell, and that is when he casts his fusion magic again. As Mateo sees that Asai is having an upper hand again with the fusion magic, he is happy. And even Shirato observes the fact that Ingolf is losing balance mid-air at that point, so it is the perfect time for Asai to strike. But as Asai directs the fusion spell to Ingolf, Ingolf is able to break through it. This shocks Asai, as he wonders how he is able to do that, but Ingolf later lets him know that it is the work of his mana armor, which can make him break through any magic. At first, Asai does not know what he means by the mana armor. Later he notices the golden haze on Ingolf's hand, so he realizes that it must be the thing acting as an armor. However, Ingolf claims that it is the armor that turns his whole body into a weapon, combining attack and defense as one, and therefore he moves closer to Asai, back to launch another attack on him. As he attacks Asai with body enhancement magic again, this time it becomes stronger, causing the ground to crumble and break due to how intense it is. Asai never expects that Ingolf has become that powerful over the years, but he thinks of another countermeasure, although he needs some time to master it. But as Ingolf is not giving him the breathing space, he has to use it like to counterattack Ingolf. And at the release of the magic, Ingolf is forcefully pushed back, as he can feel the intensity this time. But Asai cannot use it very well, as he needs to master it very well. Just then, Ingolf announces the end of the training, as he says they have already gone beyond sparring. This shocks Asai, because he is not able to fulfill his aim. And as the students head back to their classes, they all admire Ingolf, as they believe that no one can ever best the Pentagram Saints. But Mateo is proud of him though, knowing how he tries in the fight, despite his opponent. But Asai seems to understand that he cannot actually beat Ingolf the way he is, at the moment. So he sees the need to push his void magic further and become even stronger, before he can come back for Ingolf again. However, it is only Shirato who understands the kind of potential Asai is hiding, despite losing the fight. Whereas, as Ingolf leaves the stage, he knows in his mind that Asai is quite strong, because the clash he feels from him last is very strong, that he has not felt like that in a while. But either way, he is just sure that Asai is not the kind that would end it in that academy. The clash is not over yet, but Asai's revenge story is just getting started. Each step he takes brings him closer to growing stronger and taking revenge on the rest of the comrades who betrayed him. Don't forget to